In 1969, a 16-year-old boy was dumped in a remote village in Xianxi. He had nothing, no electricity, no running water, and his family name once the pinnacle of Chinese power had been dragged through the mud. He lived in a damp, flea-infested cave dug into the yellow dirt. He spent his days shoveling manure and his nights shivering in the dark. Most people would have broken. Most would have vanished without a trace. But this boy didn't just survive. He did something more. He studied the very system that destroyed his family, learning every crack, every weakness, and every mechanism of control. Today, that boy controls the world's second superpower and has rewritten the rules so he can rule until he dies. This isn't just a biography, this is the chilling blueprint of how a survivor becomes a state. Born into what was essentially red royalty, young Xi Jinping lived in the guarded compounds of Beijing, the absolute inner circle of Mao's revolution. His childhood was one of privilege, surrounded by the most powerful people in China. But in the paranoid atmosphere of the 1960s, loyalty was a currency that expired in an instant. When his father, a veteran revolutionary hero, was purged, Xi's world turned completely upside down. Overnight, he went from a prince to a pariah. He watched his family get publicly denounced, his sister pushed to the brink, and his life of comfort replaced by the brutal, chaotic reality of the Cultural Revolution. It was here he learned the first, and perhaps most dangerous, rule of power. The moment you are useful, you are a prince. The moment you are inconvenient, you are a ghost. Stripped of his status, he was sent to the countryside as part of the Down to the Countryside movement, which aimed to re-educate urban youth through hard labor. He became a target for every zealous Red Guard in China, the son of a supposed traitor. It was here, in the mud and the endless, back-breaking labor of Liangjie village, that his mind began to harden. He wasn't just working, he was observing, learning, and most importantly, waiting. He was forging a will of iron in the fires of humiliation, developing a patience that would define his entire career. After years of exile, when the political winds finally shifted, Xi returned to Beijing. But the system that had cast him out still saw him through the lens of his father's disgrace. He was still the traitor's son. He applied to join the Communist Party, the only vehicle for power in China, and was rejected. He applied again, and was rejected again. In total, he was turned down 9 times. On his 10th attempt, he was finally accepted. He knew a fundamental truth. Without the party, he was Nuthiagos, destined to fade into obscurity. But with a party, he could become everything. Once inside, he chose a very specific path, the path of the gray man. While other ambitious young officials clawed their way into the spotlight, vying for attention and making bold moves, Xi remained conspicuously quiet. He became the ultimate administrator, the man who just got things done without making any waves. He took on unglamorous provincial posts, far from the power center of Beijing. Through the Tiananmen crisis of 1989 and the chaotic purges of the 1990s, he never stuck his neck out. He was the administrator who fixed the small, practical problems, the candidate who never rocked the boat. He was predictable, reliable, and utterly non-threatening. To soften his image and increase his public appeal, he married a national icon, the famous folk singer Peng Li. This masterstroke made him seem relatable and approachable, while his more aggressive rivals inadvertently made themselves targets. By the early 2000s, the party leadership was looking for a successor. They saw Xi as the safe choice. He had the right revolutionary pedigree, but lacked any threatening personal ambition. The party elders thought they were choosing a pliable bureaucrat who would maintain the status quo and protect their interests. They thought they were crowning an administrator. In reality, they were crowning a predator who had been hiding in plain sight for decades. By 2012, when he ascended to the position of General Secretary, the mask finally came off. The quiet, unassuming bureaucrat was gone. In his place stood a man with a clear and ruthless agenda. Almost immediately, he launched a campaign that would make even historical dictators wince. The Tigers and Flies campaign, he called it. Officially, it was a sweeping anti-corruption crusade meant to clean up the party. In practice, it was one of the most effective political purges in modern history. He systematically dismantled his political rivals, one by one. High-ranking officials, the Tigers, and lowly bureaucrats, the Flies, who stood in his way, were taken down, accused of corruption, and removed from power. The campaign cleared the path until he stood completely alone at the top, unopposed. He didn't just lead. He centralized. He dismantled the system of collective leadership that had governed China since the death of Mao. He became the head of every important committee, the final voice on every major policy. He was no longer first among equals. He was simply first. To cement his authority, he enshrined his own Xi Jinping thought into the constitution, elevating him to the same level as Mao Zedong. Then, he turned his focus to the country itself. He transformed China into a digital fortress, a surveillance state of unprecedented scale. Using cutting-edge technology, the thoughts, movements, and even purchases of 1.4 billion people are now tracked in real time. The quiet bureaucrat was a distant memory. The undisputed master of China's destiny had arrived. Today, he faces his greatest test yet. China is wrestling with a slowing economy, a rapidly aging population, and a growing global rivalry that is pushing the world toward what some are calling a new Cold War. Critics see a ruthless autocrat who has traded progress and freedom for absolute control. Supporters, on the other hand, see a visionary leader who has restored a nation's pride and projected its power onto the world stage. But regardless of your view, the trajectory is undeniable. He survived the cave, he endured the purges, and he outplayed the entire political elite of the most populous country on earth. As he stands at the pinnacle of power, the man who once spent his days digging sewage trenches now dictates the future of the globe. He is the party is the state, and the state is him. So the question remains, was this the inevitable outcome of his traumatic upbringing? A survivor's quest for ultimate security? Or was it the result of a calculated decades-long gamble that the world is only now beginning to fully understand? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you found this interesting, be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the figures shaping our world.